Hi, my name is Beverly Blake, and I am presenting Chapter 5, If a Situation is Defined as Real, Premenstrual Syndrome and Menopause. And this is from the Lorber and Moore textbook. So we're going to start out with just talking about basic menstrual cycles. Menstrual cycles started being more understood with medical advances in the 20th century. Before then, they were very misunderstood. Not a lot of knowledge was known about that. So problems that occur with the menstrual cycle have become medical problems here recently. Um, Solutions are generally hormones or other medicine, when in fact things like stress management, nutritional supplements, and social supports could possibly work better and better treat those issues or problems going on. Menstrual cycles are also seen as like the entrance to womanhood. This marks their the beginning of their fertility. They're able to procreate now. A lot of cultures do look at it as a time of celebration, and they celebrate the fact that they are going from a girl to a woman. However, many Western countries do not. It is more of a burden. Negative feelings about oneself and the body can actually intensify the cramps, bloating, and other reactions that usually go along with these hormonal fluctuations that we hear about with menstruation. Menstruation and menopause are, in fact, real psychological and emotional events. Hormone fluctuations do cause a lot of that. Women are said to suffer and make other people around them suffer at that time. And then a quote from the book, it says, to paraphrase a classic statement of sociology, if a situation is defined as real, it's real in its consequences. So we do know that there are consequences to this. Medicalized menstruation. So the events of menstruation vary in different ways. They vary in when they occur, how long they're experienced, and what physiological and psychological changes occur with them. So at one point, quote, normal was defined and specified throughout research to figure out what should it be, what should it look like. So things like the time of the first period, what age should a girl be when that happens? Or, in what time, what years should it happen? What length of time should there be between the length of cycles? How often should they have them? The duration and the amount of the flow, how much is normal? And then lastly, psychological and physiological changes that accompany all of those events. So the 28-day cycle is actually a myth in Western culture. It's very commonly accepted, but it is based on a conventional month of 4 7-day weeks, which is not actually a lunar month, which takes 29 and a half days. So even things like birth control is usually prescribed for that normal month that is actually a myth. So biomedical perspective, this is social construction reflecting the high value of Western science puts on the regularity and the control of bodily functions, which we are going to see because of these like social norms. They try to control this part of a woman's life for most of her life. Many women's bodies are controlled by these social norms. So Margie Prophet, she argued that the function of menstruation is to defend against pathogens transported by the uterus or to the uterus by sperm. So she believed that it was all just a protective function of the body. So she argued that menstruation actually rids women of impurities rather than making them impure, because a lot of people would say that menstruating women are impure and contaminating. So, like I mentioned earlier, menstruating is the mark of a woman's fertility. Back in the 20th century, I believe, women started going to college more, and it was believed that if they thought too much, they would stop menstruating and they would no longer be fertile, which means their womanhood would be in jeopardy, that they would no longer be the woman that they should be. Um, and then, Gloria, another myth was that too much exercise was also bad for fertility, meaning that their cycle could actually stop if they exercised too much. Gloria Steinem asked in 1978, what would happen if suddenly, magically, men could menstruate and women could not? The answer is clear. Menstruation would become an enviable, boast-worthy, masculine event. I think that's so true. It's just such a great quote to pick out of the book. Just talking about how she makes a very valid point. A lot of men in our culture don't even like to think about menstruation, don't much less talk about it. They view it as, that's something that women have to deal with. Men don't. It's, it's a weaker thing for weaker people. But if a man had to put up with it, all of a sudden, I believe they would think, oh, well, this is boast-worthy. This is very masculine. Like, you have to be able to put up with it. When in fact, as a woman myself and growing up with other women around, like, it's not something that the weak can handle. Like, women are strong and they have to be able to go about their normal lives while also dealing with this at the same time. So ritual menstruation. So many non-Western cultures have a more positive attitude towards this coming of age when girls start their period for the first time. It was always thought of that women who lived together in close quarters would have their cycles line up. The book uses the example of women in a tribe who worked together would usually ovulate and menstruate together. So they would refuse to have sex with the men of the tribe and would encourage them to go away to hunt during that time. I don't know how that really works, but I know I've always heard that women who are together a lot, their cycles wind up being very close together. And I remember when I was in high school playing basketball and with the girls on our team who were together all the time, it seemed like once we started school, our cycles would all line back up as well. And we said we felt bad for our basketball coach, who was a man, who had to put up with all of us at the same time. But menstruation has always been viewed as something that disturbs the natural social order and should be controlled because it's just not normal, even though it really is. So emotional menstruation. So this is talking about PMS and menopause. So premenstrual syndrome, or PMS as I'm going to call it, occurs usually the week before women menstruate. So it's characterized by mood swings, aggressiveness, anger, and sometimes even violence, just depending on the person and the types of effects they are experiencing. But menopause, on the other hand, is the stopping of the menstrual cycles, which also shows a lot of the same characteristics as PMS. But in addition, they also have hot flashes, insomnia, night sweats, and general just emotionality. And usually hormonal shifts are just the cause for these. PMS, is it a hormonal hurricane or a high energy state? So PMDD stands for premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which is a more severe but widely experienced form of PMS. And this is an official psychiatric diagnosis. So premenstrual psychological effects can become issues when it gets in the way of a woman carrying on her normal social functions, social relationships, and behaviors. So this is when it starts to become an issue, and it does pose a problem because women can't carry on their normal lives because of this. Menopause, is it the end of womanhood or the beginning of a valued status? Well, Western cultures, it's often seen as the end of womanhood because they can no longer reproduce. It's like they are no longer able to fulfill their duty as a woman. However, in other cultures, menopause comes with social and financial benefits and freedom. Menopause is different from PMS because the condition itself and not just the effects is seen as a medical problem. Usually, with this medical problem, permanent hormonal replacement therapy is common. So that's when they want to put women on hormones for the rest of their lives, pretty much, because they no longer menstruate and they feel like their body isn't going to produce the hormones they need. And then we have politics and PMS and menopause and the effects. So we see in politics that a lot of other people also benefit from this. So, like, drug companies will profit from the markets from their products, whether this is medication or birth controls, hormones, whatever it is. All the drug companies, they have a profit from this. Um, Gynecologists also profit from the expansion of practices. So even when women aren't having children, they are still, or they should still be having their menstrual cycle. So which means they're going to be going to the gynecologist to be checked up, have their checkups and everything like that. Psychiatrists also profit from a larger pool of patients. They have more women that are probably going to come see them, whether it's on a regular basis or just every now and then. There are some dangers of a medical diagnosis. The treatments could have very harmful side effects. It also objectifies women's bodies and procreative cycles. We are trying to control how the body was created to work. It also focuses attention on the negative aspects, so like all of the problems that go along with it, whether that's like the moodiness or the anger, mood swings, like I said, too much, not enough, things like that. It also makes women sick, and we put sick in quotes because, some days you just don't feel good, and you might go to the doctor, or you could go to the doctor and they would say nothing's wrong with you, when in fact it's really just because you don't feel good because of your period. But for someone who is maybe going up for promotion and that happens, that could look bad on them, that they maybe aren't reliable, or they're not going to be there all the time when they need to be. So that could be a problem of all of these medical diagnoses.